Welcome to Exam Sale, where we'll be breaking down the syllabus of the Microsoft Azure Administrator exam. In this video, we'll cover the 5 domains of the exam and what you can expect to learn in each one. Let's get started. The Microsoft Azure Administrator exam is divided into 5 domains, each with its own weightage and focus area. The domains are: deploy and manage Azure Compute Resources, configure and manage virtual networking, manage Azure Identities and Governance, implement and manage storage, and monitor and maintain Azure resources. The weights for these domains are 25, 25, 20, 15, and 15% respectively. Let's start with the first domain, deploy and manage Azure Compute Resources. This domain focuses on virtual machines, containers, and app services, and it's one of the most heavily weighted domains. Making up 25% of the exam, you'll learn how to automate deployment of resources using templates, configure virtual machines, create and configure containers, and create and configure Azure App Service. In this domain, you'll also learn how to modify a JSON template, modify a bicep file, deploy from a template, save a deployment as a template, and deploy virtual machine extensions. Additionally, you'll learn how to configure Azure Disk Encryption, move VMs from one resource group to another, manage VM sizes, add data disks, configure networking, and redeploy VMs. The second domain is configure and manage virtual networking. This domain also makes up 25% of the exam and focuses on connectivity, security, and resolution. You'll learn how to configure virtual networks, secure access to virtual networks, configure load balancing, and monitor and troubleshoot virtual networking. In this domain, you'll learn how to create security rules, associate a network security group to a subnet or network interface, evaluate effective security rules, implement Azure Bastion, configure service endpoints, and configure private endpoints. You'll also learn how to configure Azure Load Balancer, configure Azure Application Gateway, implement front-end IP configurations, configure back-end pools, configure health probes, and configure load balancing rules. The third domain is manage Azure Identities and Governance. This domain makes up 20% of the exam and focuses on Microsoft Entra ID and policy management. You'll learn how to manage Microsoft Entra users and groups, manage administrative units, manage device settings, configure self-service password reset, and manage multiple directories. In this domain, you'll also learn how to create a custom role, provide access to Azure resources by assigning roles, interpret effective permissions, and manage Azure RBAC assignments. Additionally, you'll learn how to configure Azure policies, configure resource locks, apply and manage tags on resources, manage resource groups, manage subscriptions, and manage costs using Azure Cost Management.